Hey, Richest you money maniacs, welcome back. In this video, I want to talk about how the Federal Reserve printing money, quote unquote, currency, quote unquote, actually equals taxes without representation. That's right, taxes without representation. Let's get right to it. Hey, Richest you money maniacs, welcome back. Tom coming at you. In this video, I want to talk to you about how the Federal Reserve printing currency out of thin air actually equates to taxes on you without any kind of representation of what you prefer in terms of whether you want those taxes or where those tax dollars should go. Typically, in a republic, the elected officials are supposed to represent the will of the people. They're supposed to represent their constituency. Now, this is not democracy that I'm talking about, though. There's a very big difference. Democracy is really just majority rules. That's why our forefathers built the Constitution the way they did. They put in checks and balances to make sure that the mob mentality that's occurring right now would not actually be able to change the law of the land without overcoming the checks and balances that are required. And that's why we're a republic. That's why it's so important. However, it is still the duty of each of these elected officials to accurately, or to the best of their ability, represent their constituents' will. And so what we're talking about in this video is the idea of being taxed. Yes, the Constitution does call for that, for the ability for government or elected officials to tax the citizenry to be able to perform certain functions. They're very limited functions, and they've been expanded on considerably, to say the least, but we won't go into that right now. So what I want to talk about for this video, though, is part of that expansion included the idea of giving a private bank, the Federal Reserve, and if you don't believe me, look it up, the ability to counterfeit currency out of thin air. Yes, that's right. Currency out of thin air. You've probably, if you haven't heard me talk about this before, you may have heard other people mentioning it before. The Federal Reserve, number one, very important to understand, is a private bank. Number two, they counterfeit currency all day long out of thin air. They are not mining gold out of the ground and then matching that gold to the dollar bills that they create. They're not doing anything except going to a computer screen and going 100000000000000000000, and then we don't know where that money goes. It's a private bank. And every attempt to audit the Federal Reserve has resulted in not having it happen. It just gets squashed. It gets killed, dead on arrival. So we as Americans have no idea exactly what's happening in that private bank. However, you can be sure, one thing you can tell is how much currency is going from the Federal Reserve to the U.S. Treasury, because that's what the Fed's job was supposed to be. They're supposed to be the lender of last resort. When our elected officials can't get enough money, can't raise enough taxes from us to be able to go and build their empire around the world, they go to the Federal Reserve and take out a loan. And they issue treasury bills and bonds. And the Federal Reserve then puts them on the market for anybody to buy. Wink, wink. But who's going to buy them when they don't actually produce a profit and your money's tied up with the U.S. government for 30 years? Nobody. So they go then and they say, oh, well, nobody bought these treasury bills. Nobody bought them, so we have to go to the lender of last resort. We have an emergency. We need $2 trillion right now because we shut down everybody's economies and told them to stay home and won't let their workplace open because we know best. They create the challenge and then everybody asks them to fix it. It's just stupid. Okay, anyway, back on task. So they go to the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve says, sure, we'll loan you the money, but you got to pay us an interest and you got to make it profitable for us so that it's worth our while. So Then they go over to their little computer and they type in 100000000000000 return, and then they go back to the U.S. elected officials and the U.S. Treasury and say, okay, we just put the currency in your account. You're good to go. So then the U.S. government and elected officials turn around and pretend that's real currency, that it's real money. And they go and they buy real things like tanks, like ships, like planes, like land. They go to other countries and they pay for ambassadors. They pay for military posts. They pay for all types of things. And suddenly everybody thinks that the U.S. government has an unlimited supply of currency, right? So that's how it works. But what is that? How does that translate to a tax for you? The first thing you have to understand about a fake currency is that when it's tied to nothing, that means that it's losing value immediately. The minute you create a dollar bill as a fake currency with nothing attached to it, no gold standard, no silver, no palladium, no platinum, no nothing, right? It's just currency that the law says is currency. It starts to lose value immediately, and that loss of purchasing power is called inflation. Yeah. See, Keynesians, who are economic theorists who think that fake currency is a good idea, which is absolutely insane because every model of fake currency throughout the history of the world has failed miserably in flames. But in the meantime, they're getting super rich off of it. They actually want you to believe that inflation is good. That when you work and you go to try and buy something with the money, the currency that you've been paid for the work that you did, that it's okay that that dollar buys less milk every day, or less bread every day, or pays for less firewood for your fireplace, or for less gas or oil to keep your house warm every day. They have programmed us for generations, since 1913 as a matter of fact, to think that inflation is our friend. And you know why inflation is our friend? Because our elected officials have put this country so far in debt that if we didn't have inflation, we would have to default on all the debt that we have as a nation, as a country. 27, 28 trillion, I don't even know how much it is anymore. Go to us.debtclock.org. They'll tell you. They keep tabs. It's so much now that without inflation, the debt itself and the interest on the debt would be unmanageable. We would not be able to pay it. And even with inflation, we have spent ourselves into such a deep hole in such a short period of time, especially 2020, that it will become unmanageable very soon. So again, back to the point. The tax on you is the loss in purchasing power. Your ability to buy the same amount of bread requires you to work longer now. That means, right, you have to work more hours to buy the same loaf of bread. That's the same thing as a tax. That bread is more expensive because they decided to go and spend and build an empire and use fake money. You've let this happen, by the way. You voted for these people. You like all the public programs. You like that they give money away, that they're sending stimulus checks to everybody. You like the idea that they can just reach in their big fat pocket and send fake currency to you all day long if they wanted to. Yes, please give me that free money. Give it to me, that universal base income. What you don't realize is that is slavery. You are being limited in what you're allowed to do with it. You're being told how to live your life. And even worse, you're being drugged into thinking that that's an okay way to live. That is not how someone who wants to master their finances and become wealthy and free thinks. You don't look for handouts. You create value. That's why entrepreneurs are so incredibly powerful. Business owners, people who create value, are really the wealth builders, because the only way to create value is to have a value exchange, to provide a supply a need to a customer. That is a value exchange, and that's where wealth comes from. See, that's another really important point. Elected officials and government agencies don't create value. They only steal it from the value creators and then redistribute it through taxes. The worst part about this Federal Reserve thing, though, is you don't get a say in it. Usually you get to vote for the person who's going to determine whether taxes go up or down. And often in cities and states and counties, you get to vote on a tax if you want to pay that tax, or a higher real estate tax, or a higher school tax, or a higher ambulance tax. And at least you know what it's going to go to. With the Federal Reserve destroying the power for you to actually buy something with the dollar bill every day, destroying your ability to purchase, so your purchasing power every day, that is stealing tax money from you, taxes from you, stealing your hours, stealing all your weekends, stealing your overtime to be able to buy the same piece of bread. They're getting all that value from you. Now, here's the real kicker. The Federal Reserve doesn't just do that to U.S. citizens. The Federal Reserve does it to every country it does business with around the world. Because the US dollar is used as the #1 currency for business exchange, for value exchange in the world, however, that may change very soon, but that's a different video. Because that is used, that means that the purchasing power of that dollar is also taxing all those other countries without representation also. So this is a really important point to understand, and here's why. How do you avoid that inflation taxation? Because it's taxation without representation. Remember, the United States, we overthrew a monarchy because of taxation without representation. We overthrew a monarchy. We threw a bunch of tea into the ocean, and then we formed militias, and we performed guerrilla warfare on the English, the Redcoats, and we won and became a nation. And now we're allowing the same thing to be done to us again. Taxation without representation, and nobody's doing anything about it. Why? Because they're all plugged in. They're all plugged into the drug. Free money, man. Could you turn it down? If I said to you right now that I could type 12 zeros into an account with a 1 in front of it and you'd have $1 trillion in your bank account, and just don't tell anybody. Just don't say anything. Just go spend it. Nobody will know. It's okay. Your family will be fine. All your children, your grandchildren, they'll be fine forever. Just don't tell anybody. Shh. Would you do it? Would you stay quiet? You can be sure all of the Federal Reserve chairmen have decided that very decision that I just mentioned just now. They have all made that decision. They know full well the destruction of the purchasing power of the dollar that you work so hard for is occurring. And they know full well that they are getting the benefit of it. They know full well that they are profiting from it. They know that their family and their children, their grandchildren are fine. How do you make sure that you don't participate in taxation without representation through inflation? How do you make sure that you do that? You invest in certain tools, certain things that have performed as money, and certain other instruments that hold their value and protect you and your family from taxation. There are 3 specific things that I always love to focus on, although I'm starting to look a little bit closer at a couple others, but I'll share those with you more once I have my own personal experience with them and I see if they actually work the way I think they'll work. But the 3 that I know for sure work are gold, silver, and an IUL, Indexed Universal Life Insurance, or a laser fund, as Doug Andrew loves to say. So those are the 3 things. And I know I say this a lot in a lot of the videos, but the fact of the matter is you have to understand what's happening to be able to master your finances, to actually make sense of the chaos that's out there, because they make it sound so complicated, but it's really not. They're making it sound complicated so that they can get away with thievery. Okay, that's really what it comes down to. The Federal Reserve, every time they print a dollar that's fake, it steals money from your pocket. That is taxation without representation. And the only way you can combat that is that the moment you get your dollar, you put it into something that can store value permanently. And not just store value, but actually appreciate in value. Now, normally I would consider adding real estate to that list too. But right now, you may want to hold off on real estate because there is going to be another major economic crash and real estate is going to be part of it. Once that's finished, then definitely look back into real estate again. Now, remember something. Federal Reserve printing money equals taxation without representation. So to not participate, you want to actively pursue instruments, tools, commodities that have performed as money historically, that store value. Silver, gold, laser funds. And look into my videos on laser funds if you don't understand them. And if you don't understand why I'm saying silver and gold, look at the videos that I've done on silver and gold as well. In fact, I just did one on platinum as well, which is something I want to experiment with more. But in the meantime, just know that when you hear the Federal Reserve saying we're printing more money to help stimulate the economy, know that that's a tax. And know that the elected officials, because of the economic crisis and the current health crisis with the cerveza sickness and all that baloney, they are going to be raising taxes again anyway. In fact, it's already happening, and I could give a whole myriad of examples, but I won't do that right now. Just know that you need to find a way to step out of the way of that bus. And it's not even just a bus, it's a massive freight train that's coming to just run everybody over. So I hope you found this video to be helpful. I hope it helps you to understand more about what you need to do and what you need to watch for to master your own personal finances. And if you liked it, please definitely give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, make sure you comment down below and I'd love to have a conversation with you. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. We would love to be able to share with you when these videos go up. In fact, just for the record, I love sharing this information. I love sharing all these things that I've learned actually work. So please subscribe to the channel and start a conversation. Until next time, have a great one.